usually read from a description, but I think Craig's biography is so interesting, I would hate to miss out on anything, so I'm going to read it. Craig Sibley is the owner and director of Trench Art in Vancouver. Prior to art school and after, Sibley explored a variety of occupations, some of which included a journeyman baker, an urchin diver, a forestry worker, and a yacht salesman and entrepreneur. So I thought I might miss one of those. As an artist, he was represented in Vancouver by Bjornsen Karar.
Bjornsen Kajuar.
Thank you. As well as Windsor Gallery. He's exhibited throughout BC and was awarded a Public Sculpture Commission for Kelowna in 2005. Sibley sees his current project, Trench, as a way of letting his life speak and being able to make a broader contribution to visual arts and its supporting community. So that's just a brief introduction. I met Craig a couple of months ago when I was going through Vancouver, and I stopped at the Trench Gallery, which is in Gastown. It's on
Alexander Street.
Alexander Street. So at the time there was an exhibition of 110 works. So it's hung salon style, and I was just really kind of overwhelmed by the combination. I love I talked to Craig after, but I love the idea of, had artists from who did work in the 1940s, combined side by side with artists who were working in 2001, and I really like that kind of non-linear approach. And it's the same thing when I'm teaching in a class. I love the idea of being able to show like a Rembrandt beside a Raymond Pettibon work and just talk about drawing. So I really kind of appreciated the energy, and I also like the fact that someone who owned a gallery talks to the people who come in. That's one of my pet peeves, is going into a gallery and people don't talk to you. And I always a little saddened when people say, "Oh, am I allowed to go into a gallery?" Like, there's people who haven't been to a gallery. We get students who come to the school and they've never been to art galleries before, and they will say, "Oh, well, we're going on a field trip, we're going to some galleries," and people say, "Oh, does it cost anything, or is anyone allowed to go?" And I really think that some gallery owners kind of perpetuate this feeling by not welcoming people and making people feel that art is for everyone. And the other thing I appreciate about Craig is that a lot of people have this sort of cliche notion of that artists and business can't mix. And I know for myself, when I started the school and I would be talking to bankers or accountants, they would kind of look at me in amazement saying, "Well, how could you be an artist and have a business plan? Like, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this happen." I would say, well, actually artists are the best entrepreneurs I know, because they have to figure things out they are business people. They have to figure out, how to promote their work. First of all, how to do the work, promote it, and, as some of my students know, they have to get together an artist statement, and there's so much. So I appreciate having another living proof that you can be an artist and a good business person. So, well.
There you go. Thanks very much. Talk first, because I like to look at what's down. Right. Thanks for coming. As Wendy said, thank you, Wendy, for the intro. We met in the summer when I had Monomania, which was really exciting because it got me to sort of tap into some of the things I'm really interested in, both as just a person and as a business person.
Sorry. No. It just went to sleep.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, okay, good.
Do you want to sit here?
Yeah, where should I start? It's just, we met during Monomania. I'll get to Monomania in a minute. I started a gallery because I ran out of day jobs. I mean, we were just talking about this. I'm a lousy employee. I got laid off from my last job. February 14th, get this, you come home. Honey, happy Valentine's Day, I got laid off. Tears. I went back to work at another gallery I worked at once called Bushel Moet, which just shut down last year, for a brief time to look at that business as an opportunity. and that didn't work out, so I left there and I went down to the Lower East Side and I decided to start my own gallery. 5 months later I opened Trench. And Trench is, like I said in my talk, it's an opportunity for me to let my life speak. I've done a lot of things, gained a lot of experiences in my life which really helped with my art. I think it looks to me like we have a lot of mature students here. I don't see any young hipsters and, young people. So all of your, yeah, right. All of your experience goes into your art, and I'm really excited tomorrow about doing some studio visits and critiques for that reason. So Trench was an opportunity for me to get behind some art and bring, for some reason, a bit of an entrepreneurial sales sort of background that I have to the community. A lot of galleries have been closing in Vancouver. I'm the first contemporary art gallery to open up in the last 5 years. And I'm 53 weeks old this week, so I've made it through my first year, and it's really exciting. I've had eight shows. I run solo exhibitions and group exhibitions, and then things like Monomania, where it was a marketing thing. God, I gotta get people in the gallery, and I'm a block and a half from Gastown, so Monomania was really a way for me to try and stay open in the summer and intrigue people to come down from Gastown. Not very many people came down from Gastown. It was more Vancouverites coming in to see Vancouver art 1949 till now. And so I hunted around and I dug up and I interviewed people and I met artists and I somehow put together a show that had 38 artists in it. Some alive, some passed on, and it showed work, some of the first abstract paintings made in Vancouver in 1949 by Lionel Thomas, straight through till my young contemporaries like this work here, Nicholas Galinin, who's my only international artist currently, from Sitka, Alaska, Jen Aitken, a young sculptor, Jeff Deppner, the painting there, and then these drawings here are Kerry Walker, and those are my young sort of new artists that I show. So I opened up on October 28th, 2010, and I opened up with an artist that is deceased. He was an instructor at the Vancouver School of Art from 1962 to 1978, when it changed over from being the Vancouver School of Art to the Emily Carr Institute. There was a wholesale shift in philosophy, and there was quite a change, and some instructors just couldn't handle it, like Ron, and some stayed on, but Ron left, and he passed away in 2001, and through my experience in Bushel and Mowat, I found his body of work through his widow, and I came into over 300 paintings in a storage locker in North Vancouver. Oh my God, amazing. You can just sort of breeze through them. So I think the next image, there's a good image. Ron painted from 1958 when he graduated right up until his death in 2001. And he was a guy that was really dedicated to teaching, but also an extraordinary colorist and his own guy. He did his own thing in Vancouver. He was a really strong emerging artist in the 60s, and of course then intermedia happened in 1967, where new media took over. 1970 painting essentially stopped in Vancouver, but there was a few of them that just kept on going. And Ron painted large institutional-sized paintings for the rest of his career, right up until his death. And I found all these paintings. So that's what I opened my gallery up. This is opening night. It was full of students, collectors, people that were totally interested in what Ron had done. I got tons of press. I don't know how, but I did. Full-page spreads in the Vancouver Sun, the North Shore News. I mean, it was just really crazy. The story was great, right? I mean, this romantic dead artist and this closet full of great paintings. These are Target paintings from 1975. This is a stripe painting, which you can see beside, from 1975, and then he later moved back into this type of work, the patch painting, which are just thick, goopy, beautiful, abstract expressionist type of modernist, sort of post-modernist paintings, or abstract expressionist paintings done in the 80s. If we could move to the next one. You can see there, this is new artists again. I'll show you more of Ron's work. There's another great example. These paintings here from 1965. So when I started it, the gallery, I realized that I really enjoyed looking back and looking at what our city did. And I just opened up this Pandora's box of all these other senior artists that had not shown in decades, that had these amazing bodies of work that were achieved at a time when people were really focused on the craft of painting or building sculpture. And there was a language there that hadn't been sort of talked about in a long time. So I brought Ron's work to light. I sold pretty much 75% of the show within the first, from opening day to the end of it, and then carried on through December. It just sold like crazy. The gallery opened up and the momentum started. I was able to secure Nicholas Galinin, who is this artist here. Nicholas is a totally amazing young Tlingit artist. He's 32 years old, and he was my big coup because he has skyrocketed in terms of notoriety in both the native art community, conceptual native art community, and the contemporary art community. I just got back from New York. He made a petroglyph in New York, did rubbings of it. He's just doing some really interesting things. These beautiful masks are all ceramic masks based on appropriated images. That he actually went into a gift shop in Sitka, Alaska, bought a mask off the wall that was a non-native mask. So it was made in Indonesia.
Wow.
He walked in, full-blood Tlingit, Aleut artist, buys it off the wall, reappropriates it, goes to his studio, makes these masks, calls it new Tlingit art. This, of course, we might recognize because that's Bill Reed's, a knockoff of Bill Reed's Raven First Man. Nicholas, what I like about him, he's fearless. And so he commissioned a Salem, Oregon chainsaw artist to carve a rendition of Bill Reed's Northwest Coast icon, Raven and First Man, out of one block of not red cedar, but redwood, sorry, it's a variation of red cedar, and ships it up and installs it at the Bill Reed Gallery. Holy mackerel.
Wow.
So, amazing. So, this was a major exhibition for me. It was a major coup. I got, again, great press, and it sort of helped set the tone for the gallery. What I've been really emphasizing, and I think this comes from being an artist first, is that critical, it's not just about commercial success, it's about critical success and a dialogue with the community that goes deeper and is more, is just as important as making the buck. It'll come, the money will come. Right now it's about get off on the right foot and set the tone. So I set the tone, the bar pretty high. I had to do something really interesting after Nicholas's show. Then I had Sarah Robichaud, another killer show, tons of color. Vancouver's not big on color. Drab, kind of just, so I show a lot of color. That's more of Ron Stonier's paintings. Again, opening show, and the color just rocked. I mean, he was an amazing colorist. Gordon Smith considered him one of his top 5 students in his whole teaching career, and he just said he had his own thing going. It was amazing. It's amazing for me to look at the body of work from student to deceased and watch the progression. So,
excuse me, Craig, did Gordon Smith teach at Vancouver School?
No, I believe he taught at UBC primarily.
Okay.
And he did teach in the early days of
Okay.
the Vancouver School of Art before UBC
Yeah.
got going.
Okay.
It was in the mid-50s, I believe, that Gordon went, or late 50s, he went over to UBC. Lionel Thomas was one of the first people, one of the first artists to start.
Ron Stonier was teaching at Vancouver School of Art when I was there.
Awesome.
And he tried to, he suggested that the women go into fashion.
Yeah,
Those were the days,
Yeah.
right?
those are the days you were, I mean, it's, believe me, when I had this show up, I had more women come to me with stories about the inequality in the art schools at that time. And when you look at art schools now, it's completely gone over. So it's a really, and I didn't have such a lot of great comments. No, absolutely, add it to the list. Ron Stonier graduated with David Mares and Joan Baltzar in 1958. They all won the Kerner Prize in 1958. The two men got the money. Joan Baltzar was told to go become a housewife. You're not really, capable of being an artist. She went off to Mexico and Guatemala, got the keys to the city where she lived in Mexico, was honored to such a high degree in that city. She's just a phenomenal artist. And so, and came back to Vancouver and, had sort of more notoriety than Ron Stonier. Really quite fascinating history. So, but that aside, I found a great big treasure trove of paintings. This painting is 80 inches by 80 inches. It's just this big square, and it's a black painting. And what's amazing is there's Gordon Smith show up right now, black.
Yes.
And great show, but that painting, it's actually purple and black and red, and it's got so much life to it. It was just an astounding painting. He was just a great colorist. So, but this is the back room of my little gallery. I have a 2-room gallery. This has been turned into storage because storage is always an issue in a gallery.
So
And you
Craig,
gotta
is
have-
this the space on Alexander
Yep.
Street?
Yeah, my little space is 900 square feet. I found it on Craigslist. And the gallery actually got going because I'm a pink slip entrepreneur. I was on, no government officials here, right? I was on unemployment insurance when I started the gallery. Ended that, and I ended up selling 5 paintings of Ron's to one collector. And that gave me the money to start this. And so from that day, I sold 5 paintings, so okay, I got a couple of months rent here and my rent's taken care of at home. Boom, let's do it. And a year later, I'm still standing. And I'm selling more, it just keeps building. I see the train's left the station, so to hell with Italy and Europe, I'm just going to keep going. So again, this is really heavy with Ron Stonier because the show is just extraordinary. Targets from 1975. These are early 1963 works. I mean, he was just, and you can see influences of Smith and Shadbolt in those works.
Craig, are they oil or acrylic?
These are oil.
Okay. The striped one was even oil, was it?
This is acrylic, actually.
Okay.
In about 1968,
Yeah.
he made a shift. And I can show some other paintings earlier. That was a big thing. When acrylics came out, it was a really big deal. I mean, we sort of go, oh yeah, acrylic. But when it first came out, it changed the way people painted.
Oh, yes.
Ron was really big with, as a lot of the artists are, underpainting. Underpainting, and just pulling the painting out, and finally achieving the composition in the last few strokes. And it's wonderful to look into those paintings because you can see, umpteen layers of decisions and problem solving and crisis and all sorts of stuff in the paintings. So it's quite exciting. But, the gallery, again, I have a dialogue with my community, and which is, I guess, what galleries are supposed to be for a lot of the times. I've worked at one of the most successfully commercial galleries in Vancouver, and the owner at the end of the time, was trying to make the gallery really critically sort of relevant, and he kind of ran out of time. So you've got to choose early on what you want to be, and I really want to have a strong dialogue with my community. I have an eye on the past, so I'm always looking at what happened in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I've got some really exciting shows. Could you hold it here for a second? I'll talk about this painting on the left here. I keep meeting all these elder artists, and they talk to their friends and say, oh, you got to know about this guy. I just found another treasure trove of paintings of another not student of Ron's, but colleague of Ron's, up in Penticton of all places. He knew somebody up there and he left all his paintings to him. He's deceased as well. So I'm starting to build a story of Vancouver before painting ended. Ian Wallace created a painting in, I think it was 1969, and declared painting dead. And so my gallery is a lot about the art history of Vancouver and challenging that art history and re-challenging it. And I think it's really interesting that Ian Wallace, 42 years ago, declared painting dead. And let me tell you, painting is back with a vengeance. I mean, it's kind of like Return from the Dead. This is a really good example. This is Sarah Robichaud. She's another really good example. And I think across Canada right now with the RBC painting competition and a number of other things, there's a real focus on the handmade, people just really wanting to get back to some sort of, tactile thing. What I wanted to say about Ron's underpainting is that this is another really good example of underpainting, because every single one of these curvilinear chevrons is a decision made in the past, and these 3 or 4 is what he arrives at the end. And that's just an awesome example. If you look up Jeff Deppner on the internet, you'll find him starting to troop out all over the world. He just actually had a clothing line use his paintings as the pattern, as an inspiration for patterns, which is quite a compliment. And his career is just like kind of going crazy. So that's the gallery. My background is pretty diverse, as you know, and I did own a gallery in Kelowna while I was in art school. I opened up a little place called The Crag, and it was my attempt at starting a tourist gallery. It was this wide. It was between 2 of the oldest buildings in Kelowna. I had a rock wall on one side and a brick wall on the other. And it was just a derelict alley. And I saw this. I'd been to Quebec City a couple of years before, and all the artists set up in the alleys. And so I convinced the owner, who happened to, of the alley, owned both buildings on either side. I drew him a picture, so I can draw, right? Drew him a picture. It'll look like that if you just let me, and he did. He installed a flooring, a boardwalk, and lighting for me. And I opened up The Crag, and it was a huge success. Didn't make a lot of money. I ran it for 2 years, took my student loans, and used it to pay the bills.
I love that you say it's a huge success and it didn't make any money.
I didn't make a dime.
Because people
I had-
so
if I'd
often
have charged-
define success by money, but there's
Yeah,
other ways.
no, I mean, I thought I'd just like clean house. It stood for Craig's Recession Art Gallery. It's because there was a recession at the time. I thought I should have charged $1 for everybody to walk through because I was rich. I just had people they just loved it. But I closed it after 2 years and went to work for Bushel and Moda in the summer. So that was my sort of gallery experience on selling art. And then I've done a gazillion things like selling buses and yachts and as a sales thing. So.
And urchin diving.
And an urchin diver. I believe it or not, I worked here in Victoria at on 4th Street at Golden Sheaf Bakery in 1983. 83. And I did a diving thing out at Sydney and when I ran the bakery out there, and then I got invited to urchin dive, and I thought, yeah, sounds great. Fishing is good. My family's been at sea for a long time, so I went and worked 2 seasons as an urchin diver. It's just one of the things that I've done, so it was good fun. Beautiful, beautiful diving here if you're thinking about a recreation.
And Greg, did you get your BFA from UVic or Kelowna?
Yeah, I did. I did indirectly. I lived up in the Okanagan. Fishing season closed one year, and I drifted up into the Okanagan, and I ended up staying and wound up in art school in 1991. And I graduated from Okanagan University College with the UVic degree. The school had just gotten degree granting status, and so I got the benefit of UVic, which was really great because Mort Biden, of course, and the other
Roland
major sculptor.
Brenner.
Sorry?
Roland
Brenner,
Brenner.
yeah.
All the painters.
Both influenced my instructors, which was great. So, and OUC is a great little school. Strong in art history. I did 4 years of art history, which is paying off hugely now. So, historical arts. We'll go to.
Thanks, Tara, for doing
All
this.
right.
Can you stand?
So, again, I just grabbed a bunch of images. And these are fun. This is the current show up right now. So this is David Mayer's, a sort of opening the gallery led me to one person, and then it's just, like they say, it's been building. So when I'm got to know about Ron Stonier's work, I asked around who else was teaching at that time, and I went and interviewed this really shy guy named David Mayers, who was quite a bad boy painter of Vancouver in the 1960s. And he was just trying to figure out life in the 60s. And he was really quiet. He taught with Ron Stonier at the school. And he said, oh, no, all my work's at home. So this summer when I did Monomania, I asked him for a painting. And I went over to his house, and at his house I found 65 paintings all leaned up against each other in his diamond. It was awful. This is our Canadian artistic heritage,
Wow.
treated like, you know,
Yeah.
big deal. So I start picking through them and brush away the tears because I'm like, oh my God. And I find paintings from 4 major bodies of work from 1962 right through till 1993 when he stopped painting because his wife got ill. So I had an opening, an opportunity in October, and I pitched it to him back in it was late summer. And he said, okay. So this is his first exhibition, solo exhibition since I think 1989. It surveys 14 paintings, and they are the sort of notorious paintings, which is not fair. And I'll talk about these paintings because they're really
Yeah.
important.
Do you want me to go back? or-
No, this is fine. This is where it sort of starts. This is called, he was a social commentator, David Mayers. And in 1964, he'd come back from England. He'd been on his Kerner grant, right? So he had all that money, went to England, went to Europe, came back, saw all this pop painting there, came back, still influenced by the abstract expressionists, de Kooning-esque kind of thing. But media is starting to creep in. So he's watching TV and he's going, what the hell is this? You know, they'll allow all this violence on television, but they won't allow nudity. So this is 1964. It was the first time it's been exhibited since 1964. It's a gorgeous painting. The subject matter is really difficult. It's called The Rape of Lucille, as censored by the artist, or as censored for the public by the artist. And so he's just, you know, responding to his world and saying, you know, not okay. So this painting, it grabs a lot of people. I've kind of hidden it in the gallery. I have a little alcove, and you come around the corner, and there it is. But it's brutally, it's a brutal painting. I think it's a beautiful painting. It's really rich and thick. I mean, he can paint. I mean, he just moves the paint around.
How
He's
big,
very-
Craig?
Sorry?
How big?
This is, good question. It is 5.5 feet by 5
Okay.
feet. So it's a large painting. All of their paintings were large. Modernist houses, big spaces, you know, back in the 60s. So this was shown at a little gallery called Tempest that was opened by a bunch of artists because there was no place to show in Vancouver. Vancouver in the early days, there was no place to show, and it was very, very sort of Puritan, and they didn't like, you know, images like this. So move on to the next one. It's called The Queens. Oh, okay. In 1966, David Mayers opens at Douglas Gallery on Davie Street. Douglas Gallery became Ace Gallery a few years later, and Ace Gallery, if you look up Ace Gallery in LA, holy cow, 53,000 square feet of art space. Doug Christmas, notorious guy in Vancouver, fabulous gallery owner, crazy. This painting is quite large again, say 6 feet by 5 feet. It's called St. George, 10 minutes after slaying the dragon. This painting, along with another painting called La Dildo, were seized by the Vancouver Vice Squad in 1966 on opening night. They shut the gallery down, they took these 2 paintings out, they forced the gallery to cover up the windows, they forced the owner of the gallery to put 2 panthers on the restricted panthers, and 18 plus.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is what's great about having a gallery, right? I mean, this is stuff that people hear about, but the young people don't know. So, a lot of young painters come in and go, oh my God. I had a guy standing in the gallery just going, oh my God. Oh my God. You know, because you don't see paintings like this in Vancouver very much. This painting's been exhibited at the VAG quite a bit, but this is the painting that was on the witness stand because the gallerist was charged with, what was the charge? exhibiting lewd and immoral imagery. So they were both charged, and it went to trial. And the judge, the lawyer defended this painting, and it got thrown out of court, and charges were dropped. The artist got his job back. The gallerist was able to carry on. He's gone off to become a
What an
gazillion.
embarrassment for Vancouver.
Sorry?
What an embarrassment for Vancouver.
Oh yeah, well he couldn't get shows after this.
I mean, what
for the
about
longest time.
what about like Titian, the Rape of Europa?
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is really-
oh yeah. I mean, they just kind of, I mean, they just didn't get it, and
Yeah.
so it was pretty provocative paintings. And of course, people claim that it was his paintings and his subject matter that allowed for somebody like Richard Attila Lukács to be able to paint his paintings of the homoerotic, skinhead men, Nazi-inspired. So feel free to ask questions as we go through. It was just a series of provocative paintings. So the next one I think is the Queen's. This is an earlier painting called the Eunuch. So the whole show right now is sort of broken up into two walls. This is early painting. So this is 1962. You can see his abstract expressionist sort of de Kooning-esque influences. This is a fabulous painting. And move on to the next one. So there's two walls. One has 4 paintings. The other one has the controversial ones. This one is in the back on this wall, overlooking everybody. And this is called Mirror, Mirror. Again, you can really see the sort of influences of the abstract expressionists, but what's creeping in 1966 in Vancouver? The hard edge, the pop, the Michael Morris, straight edge painting, all that stuff. So this is what's great about looking back, because again, looking at the new painters, Sarah Robichaud, she's pulling tape. There's a whole bunch of painters pulling tape these days. So it's kind of cool. And this is the painting that sold this one into a very good collection in Vancouver. And I believe it is going in your bedroom. Early Ron Stonier, 1963. 5 years after art school. Totally abstract expressionist. Amazing painting. It's, again, large paintings. These are all large paintings. Everything you see right now is large. We can just sort of burn through some more here. I don't know what's next. That's smaller. This is Ron, again, just, this is called the Cardboard Series painting. That one. This is early 1963. So applying the paint with either a piece of cardboard or a palette knife. But again, just building up those surfaces and building them up until he arrives at that. And I just see mist and islands and just the subdued tones of color, which he pretty much threw out in the 1960s. I've got some images of it you'll see. This is a later painting of Ron's. This is a massive painting. It's 68 inches by 81 inches, and it is just a red painting, and it's one of my favorite paintings. 1975, Ron went to London and saw the paintings of Mark Rothko, and he was just transformed by the color. So he came back and he started these stripe paintings, and playing off Molinari and Toussaint in Montreal. But as far as I know, he's one of the only abstract artists that really pushed that genre of painting in Vancouver at the time. Because again, Jeff Wallace started to come out. Ian Wallace is dominating the scene. All the conceptual artists of the 70s. All the people coming out of Western Front. And he's painting these quiet, mystical, spiritual paintings and not getting any shows, doing these color studies. There was 27 of these paintings. I'd have them set up in a row and they would just pulsate, and this is where color theory, if you stare at the painting long enough, the color theory is just extraordinary. And then you switch to that next one. It's really interesting because this is Gary Lee Nova. And Gary Lee Nova was another one of these pop artists that painted in the 1960s. Absolutely came out guns blazing. Major artist in the 60s in Vancouver. Showed in Toronto. He painted, and if you go to any sort of Vancouver publication, these hard edge pop paintings that, had they happened anywhere else, he would have been like a god. And painting died. And he went, whoa, I'm going to do film. So by 1968, he's making films. he moves from film to computers. And this is a really recent work. He's a 70-year-old artist who builds sculpture, makes films. He's just a multidisciplinary artist, and this is the sinking ship at sunset. And it is a Photoshop work. It's huge, it's this big. So 4 feet by 3 feet. I showed it in the Monomania show this year because I wanted to show something of Gary's, and when I phoned him, he said, "I don't make what I used to make." And okay, but he's turned out to be a really interesting guy and a fabulous artist, and I just love this piece, and it's, again, pushing an idea absolutely to the limit. So it's pretty cool. I don't have images of Joan Baltzar, which is a real shame, and I'm working on that. So I don't know what else. There's the Queens. Can you hold it there for a second?
Yeah.
This is another one of the paintings that David Mayers made in 1966 that got him into a bit of trouble. Doug Christmas, his gallerist, takes him to a gay bar in 1966, down into the basement of some place in maybe off Davie Street or something. He'd never been to a gay bar before. And David responds by sort of asking some pretty big internal questions, and he paints the Queens, like asking the question, well, will these women get married? This painting was painted in 1966, 45 years before it became legal in Canada. And it's gotten a lot of attention because it showed two gay people getting married. And then the puzzle piece, he didn't stick them on a rug, like maybe Matisse would have done, or some modernists that way, but he puts them on puzzle piece. So it just adds another level of, curiosity to the painting and social commentary, like how do these people fit in, It's quite exciting stuff. And I'm, just another one of those paintings I hope finds a really good home, because I think it's really socially relevant. And that's kind of it for that. New arts. Hey, do you have any questions? I mean, I'm just kind of rattling away here. Don't get to do this very often. So, it's actually my second time. Sarah Robichaud. Sarah, how many of you are students of Sarah? Great. Awesome. Really interesting paintings. This is quite a big painting. It's called Clean. And what I liked about Sarah's work was that she actually wasn't afraid to go back into an old painting and push it a little bit further. So these hard edge elements were there in the beginning. And after she did her master's degree at ExhibitVic here, she went back into a bunch of her paintings and pushed them a little bit further and added another structural element that I found really interesting. And again, just playing with the color, she's just a great colorist. And her technique is really quite unique, and she commands it. The woman's just got this amazing command of paint, which is really quite exciting. And the next one is another good example of that. This was in her show, and it's amazing how much an abstract painting can reference something without really referencing something. And a lot of people came to this and said bacon. Like, what is it about it? But it is a Bacon-esque kind of painting. And elements like this really quiet, beautiful gray space just shifts everything, gets everything toned down while all this madness occurs on the opposite side. So she's an exciting painter. This is de Kooning-esque and relates very much to the earlier paintings of David Mayers in the sense that the structure is very similar, yet the painting handling and stuff is completely different, and yet it relates very much to de Kooning. But again, these hard edge elements in it. This was above my desk for the longest time. It's just a great painting to have.
So Craig, how did you first come in contact with Sarah?
Oh, that's a secret. No, Sarah walked into Bushel Mowat when I worked there. I was at Bushel Mowat for 2 months, March of 2010 till May. And it wasn't the right place for me, but Sarah came in and I had a great chat with her, and I liked her work. So when I did Trench, I gave her a call and I went over and did a studio visit, and that's how that all started. So, again, the hard edge thing. So we go from Sarah, who's moving paint around like crazy, yet cutting these hard edge elements in, you go to the next one, which is a woman named Sarah G. And that's a collage, believe it or not. That's a paper collage, and it's called Bird in the Hand. And the symmetry of it reminds me of First Nations work. The masks, how perfectly symmetrical it is. But it is constructed of hand-painted paper, so she's painting on paper, acrylic painting on paper, and then cutting it out and setting up these beautiful relationships and designs. And she's just having a hoot. I mean, she's in shows all over Vancouver, and she doesn't have gallery representation, but she's showing and showing and showing, and people are paying attention. You know? Again, Nicholas Gallinan showing work in the gallery that in an unconventional way. I like to kind of have some impact and that. And I didn't have a lot of black paint, so I got away with just sort of painting part of the wall. But I'll just go back to Nicholas's work there for a sec. This mask right here is actually a paper mask that he cut page by page to replicate a human Tlingit form. So it's one of his book sculptures. And again, I've got, go to my website, I believe there's some images up, but there might not be. Otherwise you can just look up Nicholas Gallinan and you will find his book masks. There's 30, in these ones maybe about 1,700 pages that he lays out and he cuts and then he just builds this mask. And then the shredded paper often refers to his culture's, when the Christian missionaries came to his culture, they shaved the heads of all the shamans. And so he has hair surrounding these masks that might be the shredded, a Bible, pages of the Bible shredded, where he'll create the hair element, just referencing, you know, that element of the mask. So, and of course, these are ceramic masks, and what you're seeing here is actually a toile, French toile, sort of colonial applique. So it's like a teacup, and he has an installation where there will be 12 of them on the wall representing more or less the fine porcelain or the special occasion kind of plates or teacups that your family might use. And he feels that, you know, native culture is often sort of taken off the shelf when the government wants it or when our culture wants it. It says, here's our native people, aren't they lovely? And they put them back up. But somebody called Colin Brown, an academic in Vancouver, filmmaker and writer about these, bought one the other week. And he was looking at them, and he's studying them, and then he turns to me and he says, smallpox. And I just fell over. So you had, and Nicholas has never said anything, but if you look at the pattern of the applique, it mimics the smallpox of scars that came on the face. And there's some that are completely covered, and others with only one or two, and it just completely changed the body of work for me. It was just really, really profound insight. So good contemporary art, somebody just pushing it. And what's interesting about this artist is he's a traditionally trained Tlingit carver. He's done a full apprenticeship under his father and his uncle. He can carve a totem pole, he makes beautiful jewelry, he sings, he plays music, he just does it all. He did his traditional training, and then he went to London and studied silversmithing, similar to Bill Reed. Realized he didn't want to be that kind of an artist. Comes back to North America and decides, I'm going to go do a master's degree in Aboriginal studies, and he heads down to New Zealand. And then all hell breaks loose for him there, and he really pushes his ideas. So he's one of a number of young native artists on this beautiful West Coast that are really pushing what it means to be an Aboriginal artist, because they're saying essentially Nicholas's thing is that you don't break with tradition, but you have to be allowed the freedom to push the culture forward. People are getting too complacent with, native art, that's that nice, perfectly symmetrical, nice form, and it shouldn't be. So he feels it's his right as an artist to be able to do something like this. And I'm going to be putting this back in the gallery next month. So if you're in Vancouver, this will be probably right where it is right now in the gallery, and it takes up space, believe me. It's just like, resonates, so.
Where does it live when it's not in your gallery?
In special storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's almost 6 feet high. It's 40, 50 inches wide. And when I moved it in, it had been at UBC, at the Museum of Anthropology, outside in the courtyard looking in on Bill Reed's sculpture. It was brilliant, you know, and there's some great photographs of it. Sort of like the ugly cousin, you know, looking in. It's great.
Is it
So-
for sale?
It is. Yeah, if you'd like to buy it at $68,000, we can talk after. But yeah, we've actually been talking about making an edition of it. So pulling a mold off of it, which is a very complicated thing.
Did you say he himself didn't carve it, or he
No,
commissioned somebody?
he commissioned somebody.
Yeah.
Bill Reed never carved the raven. I know that for a fact. He might have done some of the rough work, but all the finishing work was done by a number of other carvers. And
White ones too.
white ones too, George
Yes.
Hamill. Saw him the other day. I mean, you know, it was amazing. So I had the good fortune of, through Bushland Mowat, working with Bill Reed at the end of his life. And so I was one of those real fortunate people that worked in close proximity to Bill Reed, not as an apprentice or anything, just somebody that happened to be around his studio, and I curated a show of his work.
Yeah, was there any pushback for copying something that Reed did?
Well, it's a story. First of all, it's a, you know, it's a myth. He made it quite a direct replica of Bill's. So yeah, you can imagine when it showed up a day late from the opening at the Bill Reed Museum, all hell broke loose. And I likened it to Marcel Duchamp's Armut being put in the Armory show in 1918. It just blew wide open the potential of what Northwest art could be. And it was a really important piece. He had to stand up and defend it. He got put on the spot. I mean, you can imagine in the Bill Reed Museum, there's a lot of academics, a lot of people that completely disagreed with this. And it was carved by a white man. I mean, it was a white carver that did this. The guy who handled the chainsaw was amazing. I mean, that is just a phenomenal piece. The back of it, I think there might be another shot of the back of it. Yeah, I mean, look at the work. I mean, this guy was so accurate. And you know, when you get into the human forms coming out, I mean, they look scared. Bill's are very they're, how do you say, not decorative, but they're very perfect. You know, they're just absolutely symmetrical. Everything, the surface tensioning on the carving is exceptional. And you know, it has a different kind of drama than this. I'm unloading it from the truck into the gallery. I have two First Nations guys. I'm in the Lower East Side. My gallery is just on the cusp of the Lower East Side. And we're loading it, unloading it, and two guys say, wow, you know, this is amazing. It's rough, really rough, just like life down here on the Lower East Side. So it has a resonance with where it is. So it's a really strong piece. People really responded to it. There you go. That's Nicholas Goodman. And probably, yeah, there's a shot of it inside. If we make a cast of it, we're going to cast them in black iron, or cast iron. It won't be bronze. So yeah, and I have a real, I show some photography, but it's more of a historical photography, and so the next painting is, I show a lot of paintings. This is Rebecca Donald, who is another young painter in Vancouver. But this is quite a political painting. It's an Afghan landscape, poppy field in Afghanistan. Oil painting. She has a really interesting technique of getting these ripples. Painted very goopy, and she lets it stand up for a little while and dry. Or she lays it flat, waits for it to dry a couple of days, and then she picks it up and all the paint runs. But it runs within the bubble. So the skin, you know how you get a skin? Oh, it's just great. But there's this gorgeous, it's that underpainting thing again. There's this gorgeous landscape underpainting underneath the surface. And I love that push-pull thing which you see in Ron Stonier's work. And there's just that dialogue with the space, which I think is really exciting.
Was that for the time? Did it see this?
Yes, it's Poppy Field in Afghanistan. And it's not a very large painting. It's this big. So, 30 by 24. So, only at night, I guess I thought I should bring along some promotional material, what the gallery does. You know, I rah for my artists. This was my last show, Only at Night, painted by Dougal Graham, another young Vancouver painter who actually painted at the end of the last century, 1999 to 2001, or 1998 to 2001. He had this huge run of things with another two guys he painted with in Italy, and they were rock stars in Italy. It was just outrageous what happened to them. 6 major museum shows, they just had this huge thing, and then the group fell apart. And so he's been reinventing himself as an artist, which I think is a really interesting thing to do. So, and this is a huge painting. Yeah, this is actually, sorry, a painting called That's It.
3 Queens.
And it's big. It sits in a restaurant now. I just got asked to put high-end art in a really high-end restaurant in Vancouver, so I did it. And the response has been phenomenal. So it's kind of exciting. Getting eyes on the work, because I still am a commercial gallery, and I got to sell the art for the artist. You know, he needs me to sell painting, so I'm trying to get it out there. And then the next one, this is somebody that we should all know about. This is Vicki Alexander, and she's more known for her imagery and photography, two-dimensional imagery, but she's also quite a sculptor. And these are acrylic sculptures, an acrylic sculpture that stands about that high, and I just thought it was just absolutely beautiful and kind of provocative and interesting. And, yeah, this is something I haven't had the good fortune of showing it yet. It's in Calgary right now, but I've shown her other work. I just wanted to show that.
Yeah, I had no idea Vicky did that kind of sculpture. I mean, I've seen her photographs and her furniture pieces. But
Yeah, well, this is related to this. Yeah.
So when was this done?
This was done not very long ago, 2006.
Oh, wow.
2005.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I get asked to find things sometimes by people, so part of my job is to, you know, rummage around Vancouver and find what they need and stuff. So in that way, I guess I act as a consultant as well. So there we go. And I think the next one is Dougal's. That's the painting itself, and again, really heavy underpainting. And his imagery comes directly out of pop magazines and that sort of stuff. Those are models from magazines. He doesn't work with the live model, but he's totally fascinated by painting the figure. Next one. That's Nicholas Galinin. Yeah, that's you. I had it hidden in the back room. People would walk around the corner and go, sometimes, you know, scream. It's a gray wolf. It's called Inert. And it was just an amazing piece. It's just gotten shipped to Toronto to be in a show in Toronto. He's, like I say, I mean, he's absolutely on fire. Every time he goes and does a talk, he gets more and more shows. He's in the last 6 months, he's been in Berlin talking, and from that he got some shows, Paris, New York twice, now Toronto, just had a show in Winnipeg. And he's showing all over the United States, so I don't have very much inventory of his work, which kills me, but it's an amazing piece.
Does he do other things like that, or is that kind of a one-off?
That's a one-off right now. He does work with fur. He made a rug, a welcome mat, out of a polar bear hide, and it had welcome cut out of it. And he put it at the mat. People just walk. Just walk right in. And, you know, I mean, whoa, he's not afraid to take on a lot of issues like that. And these wolves are farmed. He bought the taxidermied one as a taxidermied wolf that he changed.
What are they farmed for? For
Yeah. And the one that's actually the rug is the one that was farmed.
Where? I didn't know wolves were farmed. Where are they farmed?
I believe he said Alaska. But, you know, small, you know, yeah, it's Alaska. But I mean, he's political. He made a joke. Somebody at UBC asked him where he got the wolf. He says, "Oh, Sarah Palin shot it." And then he says, "From a helicopter." You know, he's just with it. He really knows what's going on.
I'm not sure why, but it kind of reminds me of Joseph Beuys.
Yeah, very much. Very
Yeah.
much.
Although he didn't work in fur, but he.
Felton, but he worked with the Coyote
Yeah.
and the piece that he did in New York.
Mhm.
Joseph Beuys is
And so, is he American?
He's an American, yeah. It's really interesting because he's Northwest Coast, and the Vancouver Art Gallery, we're going to include him in a show, and because he's shown a lot in Vancouver, and they didn't realize he's Tlingit. He's actually from Alaska, and they had to pull him off with the show. It's like, we're just not doing our homework. But yeah, he's an American Indian, and so it's really quite interesting because he's born in Alaska, I think. I can't remember. Born in Alaska, raised in Seattle and parts of the United States, but calls Sitka, Alaska his home, and that's where he is. He has a beautiful family, and he has a small gallery there where he sells his traditional jewelry. So he's burned too. There it is again. It's big too. I mean, it's 6 feet long. And we got to know each other. He wanted to do another one with a polar bear. So I spent a couple of weeks trying to track down money to help him buy polar bear hides, which is about $30,000. And so he was going to get there's the mask. So, that was just a maquette for another piece. So those are the masks. And those are called ghosts. I can't pronounce the Sitka, Tlingit word for ghost, but they're sort of ghosts. That's what he calls the series.
So how would that be more smallpox design?
Well, I mean, you can see here it's flowers, and the red one is actually colonial sort of people, peasants or whatever. So they're really they're very beautiful, but at the same time, and of course they're appropriated masks, right? So they're not.
Right, I forget what you said about the hair, though, they shave the shaman.
Yeah, although on the paper ones. These ones, this is more of a, you'll see, walk down any street in Victoria, you'll see the hair on the masks, the cedar carved masks and that. In this case, it's more decoration. But that's another painting by Dougal. Vicky Alexander.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that great? So that's, again, me, I really like Vancouver modernism. Vancouver's really unique that way, that even Victoria as well. But there was a particular architecture that evolved out of Vancouver, and this is actually a collage that she actually blew up. And if you really look at things, I mean the dog, everything, that was in my front window all summer, which is great. So, and that was it's sort of indicative of the 80s, but maybe it's really. This is really funny. This is Carrie Walker. She was one of the first artists to sign on with me. This is what she calls a found drawing. And so Carrie is a beautiful drafts person. She can draw like there's no tomorrow. But she draws animals. So all of this here is a found drawing that she bought off the internet from eBay. So she goes online and she looks for drawings that are for sale, that are cheap. And she buys them and has them shipped to her studio. And then she erases and interjects into the scene an animal or a series of animals, and sort of hijacks the narrative of the original drawing. So it makes it very contemporary, yet at the same time, nobody can draw it. I think I got a couple of images of Carrie's. She can just draw. And some of these might be from like like the dates on that, 1858. So this drawing here is 1858. The primate is 2010 or 2008.
So is it a print of the drawing
No.
from 18, or it's an actual drawing?
It's a drawing, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, I mean, what I find amazing is that she draws very similar to the type of drawing here. So it's very difficult sometimes to tell, what
she's at.
is that doing? Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was a great show. And I did a show of her last January, and we called it Firework because she hated me for saying this, but her studio burned down. The building that housed a whole bunch of studios and a couple of restaurants and various other things in a very prime sort of area in Vancouver, one night on Christmas Day, burned to the ground, and well, not quite to the ground. And 10 days later, she was allowed to go back into her studio, and she went to look for one thing, which was a brass nameplate, and she ended up finding a box of a drawing box that hadn't burned. And so it was water damage, and she managed to get the front doors off it, and she rescued a bunch of drawings. But they were all smoke damaged and water damaged. And she said, well, these are ruined. And I said, no, it's value added. Are you kidding? This is a great idea for a show. So her friend came up with the title Firework, and we put the show up, and it was just a great success. I just loved it. And that show was all work that had been through the fire, and it's really quite remarkable because they're all paper. And everybody thinks that paper would just perish in a fire, but it doesn't. It's, you know, it was protected and then it was wet. But yeah, some of them got through blemish-free, others, you know, just beautiful smoke damage and various other things. This was one of the lucky ones. And the next shot is more of Nicholas's work. Again, this is from the Invisible Indian series. And this is absolutely mesmerizing. It's an installation he does. These are all, again, made of native art. So he goes into the gift shop, you know, unsuspecting tourists on the Alaska cruises buying art. And in this case, he projected this colonial pattern onto the masks and painted them. They are impeccably painted. He has some assistants, and then he floats. He would wallpaper a wall. And then he would float 5 or 6 inches away from the wallpaper, these masks. Well, they become like holographs, and they sort of disappear into the pattern. Again, you know, what is the colonization of the Northwest Coast or American Indians was to have them disappear. His, you know, American history, Native history, is different than Canadian history in the sense that they fought American Indian wars in the United States. We didn't hear so much. We did it other ways.
Yeah.
So in the United States, they disappear. I mean, they have a different sort of culture here. But so these just disappear. It's absolutely fascinating. And I actually installed this piece into a collector's home. It's right above the bed in his guest room. It just looks fantastic.
With the wallpaper?
With the wallpaper.
Wow.
I created I actually wallpapered a panel. I sold each piece as a
What
a
can't you
sold
do?
panel. What's that?
What can't you do? Not your wallpapering.
I don't do electrical and I don't do plumbing. Takes me a long time. Yeah, so you gotta know what you need. So yeah, just amazing pieces. So yeah, and this is one of his pictographs. Or sorry, petroglyphs. Goes out into the middle of the Alaskan wilderness. Sits there. You know, and that's it. And he's done a few of these. It's brilliant. And of course, it's the Indian motorcycle sign, right? So,
Right.
and he's told his story like he's sort of out there in the middle of nowhere. He gets stuck between a bear and a boat. And he's like, oh my god. So yeah, he's a real character. He's a fabulous artist. Others than I'm going to carry him. I mean, she's just got such a great sense of humor. I guess we'll end off with my work and then we can sort of ask questions. And we'll just burn through my work because I didn't bring a lot. I'm a sculptor. I worked at building sculpture really early on in school. I grew up with a father that was a sheet metal worker and a builder, always working on the house, and I grew up around shop. And this is after a really brutal critique that I got. It took me about 2 weeks to recover. Felt like I got kicked in the stomach, but it was the best thing that ever happened. I hadn't had a critique like that ever, not even in art school. And so this body of work was the result of listening to what this guy said. And strangely enough, he was an artist come dealer. And he just really put the guns to me and made me really push my work. So I shifted completely away from another approach to wood and organic forms to go more towards this. So there's another shot of this. And this is big. This is 9 feet long and about 3 feet high. And it's 110 1/8-inch rods installed into 3 laminated bent wood forms. And I call it baleen. It sort of refers to the baleen.
So the rods are wooden and
No, the rods are steel.
steel,
Yeah.
in wood.
And into wood, yeah. And that sits in my backyard. Why isn't it in that, you know? This is a piece called Flume. I think it's Flume. I called it a drawing, actually, because the way I made it, it was like doing a drawing. I had a welding torch, not a torch, but a really nice 210 welder, and a zip cutter. And I built that by hand. Every bend in it is done around a tire or real physical kind of just on the back of the studio. I used to share a studio with a well-known Vancouver artist, Alan Story. If you ever go to see the Pendulum in Vancouver,
Yes, I think just
yeah, I was
BC.
like, oh, I'd love to share a studio with you. You know? It's kind of cool. He's an Okanagan boy too, so. And this piece in the back, this is the piece that I made after that critique. That piece was really small, it was about that big. And the guy said, what the hell's that? You know, it's a maquette for something. I'm like, no, it's, So I basically flipped him the finger and said, you know, get out of my studio. And it took me about 2 weeks and I made that piece and I kind of went, oh yeah, shit, he's right. And that piece sold, it's in a house in West Vancouver, it's 13 and a half feet long. So it was nice to place a few pieces. And this is in my friend's front yard. And it's completely rusty now, it's made out of rebar. And I just drew a lot of imagery from natural forms, so looking at seed pods and just structure in nature. I found it really fascinating. And this was to be the beginning of a number of pieces that would all fit into and make maybe a large installation. But I got my job at the bus place, and that was it. I ended up doing other things. So, and this is another piece. This is actually a detail of the next one. So. This is all yellow cedar, and I got all my curves by laminating, so I didn't do a lot of steam bending, but it's all, there's no nails, this is all proper joinery and dovetails, and these two points come together, and then when it rocks, it actually, those vibrate, and they sort of talk to each other, and that's called the road to Sibley, I think. So, sort of spiritual.
And how big is that, Craig?
About 8 feet
Oh my goodness.
from there to there, and about 40 inches high, and when it rocks, it comes through. It's really beautiful to just watch. So.
What glue did you use?
Sorry?
What glue did you use to
Good
laminate?
question. Gorilla glue, believe it or not, polyurethane Gorilla glue. Yeah, I used a lot of that stuff. It's toxic, awful stuff. I mean, that's been sitting outside now for 3 years, and it's fine.
And you did it run a form of some sort?
I built a jig, yeah. A lot of these things are built on jigs, and then, you know, stuff like this would have been carved, you know, just me with a pull neck. And then the next one is my favorite. That's called The Utility of All Things. It's about 10 feet long. The needles are made up of found wood. I used to build found object stuff, and I used to find myself packing all this garbage home, and I'd live with all this stuff. Well, I'm sure I'll use it one day, you know, like forget it. I just got sick of it, so I shifted to essentially new wood. And so these are found wood, but it was really nice wood. Clear, beautiful, really old cedar siding I got off an old house in East Van. And so again, I pulled the curves, and this wheel thing, which on the next image you can see sort of more clearly, is actually all wood as well, but it's covered with tar. And it's fiberglass here. They all sort of came together to form the wheel. And then this was fiberglass and bondoed, and there's actually a hole through there, so when you walk by you can see through it. And I don't know, there's just something about that piece that I really like. It's sort of moving forward, but at the same time it's really fragile.
So do all those bolts go through the center and come out the other
Yeah,
side?
they all sort of, this sort of joins in the center and becomes this sort of block. And then they just run up through, and then I carved them, and they're pinned through this circular thing. Everything's just laminated, and I can't remember even how I got. This is a problem if I ever have to fix it again. Yeah, just cut a hole and made that go up through, and then a pin through, and then tarred it. I don't know. So yeah, but my practice has been pretty diverse. After this body of work, I did a show at the Richmond Art Gallery, all out of the pine beetle kill. So I went up and got wood. I was driving buses actually up to northern BC. Sell a bus, drive it up to where they you know, the First Nations and various things. And I would see these massive tracts of land of dead trees. I mean, it was just heartbreaking. I mean, valleys, as far as the eye could see in northern British Columbia, all from the pine beetle. I mean, you know, Vancouver is very insular. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, the forest just goes forever. And you get over the top, it's clear cut, and there's dead trees everywhere. And I was just astounded. So I responded by doing 2 shows. I did an installation in Prince George, Great gallery. We've got great galleries throughout the province. So Prince George, Kamloops, Kelowna, Penticton, all got incredible art galleries. I mean, spaces to die for. So I did a big installation there in PG outside, and then I did this one at Richmond Art Gallery, all using the wood from the
Do they call that like denim wood or something?
yeah, denim wood is the when the bug goes through it, leaves an enzyme that stains the inside of the wood blue. And they were milling it and trying to market it to furniture builders and stuff. And this wood just sort of had staining in it, and I just sort of made the pieces that were sort of, you know, if there was to be remnants other than, if there was a metaphoric remnant of the trees and the forest dying, what would they look like? So I built all these structures out of the wood.
How did that, pine beetle thing change the integrity of the wood? What was the wood like after that?
Seemed fine. I know there's been debates about it. Like, they're not letting it be being used to build houses and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. Just grinding it up and making it into fuel or something. I don't know. It's really crazy. For me, it was just.
So it's not pitted or anything, it's just.
No, the beetle goes up through the cambium layer of the wood between the bark and the actual fiber. So, yeah, it was just crazy.
The tree doesn't die a natural death.
No.
It's not like cutting it down and using it as wood. It's had a long, slow death and it's weak.
Right.
There's also a fire risk.
Sorry?
It's a fire risk. It just
Oh
sits
gosh,
there.
yeah. I mean, Vanderhoof, yeah. I mean, I stood at Vanderhoof, and it was just, these valleys stretch for, kilometers. So that's kind of my life as an artist and a dealer.
Right, just a technical thing about this, all these pieces, you're thinking the spokes and the rims,
Yeah,
are they all laminated wood?
yeah. So I would have made a jig,
Yeah.
and I would have pulled each one around that, clamped it. I had hundreds of little 1-inch pinch clamps, and I would just clamp it to it. And I have a system, so I would pull those off in a week.
I was just amazed you can get all those into the rims without, and hold the whole thing.
Oh yeah, wired it together and, quick drying, really hot epoxy and just figuring out ways and playing. I mean, I start with a drawing or an idea and it was totally organic. I mean, I didn't say, I'm gonna build this and get to that. It was, every one of these pieces was very organic in that sort of process. Much preferred working that way. When I did the public art project in Kelowna, which was a land art piece, I had to know exactly what I was doing, when it was going to happen. And that was fun. I remember saying to myself, wow, does it get any better than this? I mean, 6 weeks off from my bus job making art.
So is that documented anywhere?
Yeah, in Kelowna, they documented it in Kelowna. It was a site-specific piece. Paying respect to the man, the namesake of the park, Ben Lee, who's Chinese-Canadian, and the family, the Tamagi family, who farmed it for 10 years and actually pulled a living off this 13 acres. And so it's a garden, and it's 2 interlocking mounds of dirt that are shaped like a yin-yang, so the 2 pieces sort of interlock, and it's 6 feet high. So the mounds sort of rise up, and they create a space in between. And there's a dry creek bed, which is a Japanese garden sort of element, and a bridge going over the creek. And on that, there's when you're selling the public art thing, it's got to be something for everybody. So there was text on the planks of what community gives people. So levels of security, recreation.
Is it a little walled garden
Just
in
a-
Kelowna?
No, it's in a park called Bentley Park. I'm sorry, I don't have a photograph of it. And it's 80 feet wide, 6 feet high. The creek kind of emerges out of the mounds, and then I surrounded it with 15 pear trees, which I wanted original pear trees. Li means pear. It goes back in Chinese, like way back. And so that was just paying homage to Ben Lee, who's an art teacher and a great all-around guy. And the time, some Japanese, Chinese. Yeah, it's fun. So, yeah, that's